Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Paragon Guide. I am Sylphin, and in this video we are looking at the top 5 tips for beginner players in Paragon. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these top 5 tips are from my experience. Remember, I am in no way a professional gamer, but I do have experience and I do have some critical insights. Take these with a grain of salt. Again, these are my tips that perhaps aren't as, in order as other people would like them, but you are simply here to get another point of view from another gamer. Now, some of these tips are going to be very specific, where it's a very particular skill or a certain very particular item, but the others, some others, a lot of them, are big concepts that are definitely met in a lot of different ways. The very first one, ladies and gentlemen, is probably the biggest one of them all, a very big concept that is, again, hard to get entirely, and that is simply map awareness. Now, how can you be aware of the map? How do you best use that mini-map that is provided for you in the top right-hand corner? How can you better increase map awareness? How do you actually use that as an advantage to win games? That is what you must learn throughout the game. Now, why is it important, though? Why do you, as a new player, need to constantly be thinking, and even as intermediate and even professional players, why do you need to focus on map awareness? Simply because no matter the hero, no matter your build, if you are not in the right place at the right time, it simply doesn't matter. So you need to be in the right place at the right time for hero ganks. You need to be at the right place at the right time to defend a tower. For example, our right tower right now, as I'm speaking, is almost dead, simply because that Chimera and that Rampage did not have the map awareness to just take a gander, look at what needed defending, and actually defend that tower. That was one example already. Here's map awareness coming into play, utilizing my ward here to know that this Chimera is coming to get me. That is map awareness. Paying attention to your mini-map in the top right-hand corner, paying attention to where are the lanes being pushed, what heroes are on the map, how many enemy heroes can you see on the map. Right now, I am looking at where did that Chimera go? Is he still standing in there? I can't tell, because number 2 tip for beginners is something that's coming next. Map awareness. It is simply going to be the primary thing that should be on your mind. Where am I? Where is the enemy? Where are my allies? What objectives on the map are not being met? What needs defense? What needs attack? Keeping an eye on your minimap is going to be one of the biggest things that makes you a successful player. Now, one thing that is going to absolutely be the biggest source of map awareness by far is going to be wards. Providing vision for your team, making sure that you can see where the enemy is on the map is going to be huge. Knowing where they are, knowing when you can engage, if there are enemies coming to gank you, is going to be absolutely huge. Always in the early game, ladies and gentlemen, the very first points that you get a upgraded ward. You saw that I got a Scout's ward there in the beginning, and now I have a Lord's ward. I have an upgraded version of a Scout's ward that is simply going to be the strongest card you can get in the early game, that you should keep for a very long time. That will give you all of the advantages that you need to stay alive and keep some kind of advantage over the enemy. Vision simply it saves lives. If you have a ward in place, if you can create a advantage here with your wards simply being able to stay alive and not get your friendlies killed, not get your teammates killed, you killed, is simply going to be very, very essential. Pardon my commentary while I try to win this team fight. There we go. Very nicely done. And wards, they give you control over the map. If the enemy knows that you can have great vision over the map, it limits them in how they move and how they even do ganks. If I know that the enemy team has a fantastic control over the map and over vision, I am simply going to not be that interested in doing rotations because it's not going to be a good use of my time. Vision is everything. Vision wins games. Also, small tip, be very cheeky with how you place your wards. As you can see, they have vision here, and it is definitely something here that with my map awareness, I'm going to realize that my rampage is in trouble here. Use my abilities here to provide him with that escape, and there is how map awareness can pay off. Pardon the jumping around, I just need to show you these examples. I very much could go back, get my mana, get my health and mana potions, but 3 people ready to take down this tower, it needs to be defended. Keeping my map awareness, having the sense of where am I the best, the most useful, is absolutely important. Now, the next tip is a very, very important one, as all of them are indeed. Now, this next tip is, in fact, deals with your hero. So, what is your role? Now, how do you best fulfill that role, and what do you have to do in regards to it? So, I always tend to ask myself 3 things. What exactly is my role? What exactly do I do? So, for example, this hero that I'm playing right now is the Fae, and she is a very, very powerful support hero that uses her crowd control abilities, her slow on her Q, the area of effect damage on her right click to actually do something like this here. So slowing down this morale so that I can actually make the kill happen here. So now I have to definitely get the heck out of here, as somebody is certainly coming to get me. So that is that map awareness that I'm talking about. But we're talking about a role. So first you have to determine what your role is. What is it really? Look up your hero, look up guides that best, that really delve deep into the character and determine what their role is. Now, once you've figured it out, are you a tank? Are you a carry? Are you an initiator? Are you a caster? Are you an assassin? What is it? Next, you definitely have to determine, how do I best fulfill that role? So, what do I actually do in the game to best fulfill that role? Look it up online, look up guides, etc. Educate yourself on what exactly best fulfills a tank role, best fulfills an initiator, best fulfills a caster. Look that up. Next, now that you know what to do to best fulfill the role that your hero is, next you have to think about, how do I best go about it? So if a tank needs to be somebody that has a high amount of health, that can have a high amount of just damage sustained, then you have to go about learning what exactly is that you have to do in order to do that. Now, that can be tricky. People might have different opinions as to what exactly it is that you need to do in order to be a a successful support or a successful tank. But generally, it's pretty much the same. As you can see, our friendly team has very different opinions of what to do in an engagement. As you can see, our Kalari and Chimera decided to go all the way in the back and do their thing in the back line, where really they should have been with that Rampage and me in the main engagement. So remember that tip number 3 has to deal with your role. 3 things regarding your role. That is, what exactly is it? What do you have to do to fulfill that role? And number 3, how do you fulfill that function of the tank? Tip number 4 is very, very important when it comes to your hero again. And that is stat priority throughout the match. Upgrading certain things at certain times has a different effect relative to the game, relative to the match at that time. So for example, in the early game, damage has a very positive effect. It enables you to get last hits much, much easier in the early game, enabling you to get more power earlier in the game, hopefully leading to an advantage over the enemy team, and therefore creating a snowball effect that you want to keep going. So for me, I definitely upgraded damage if I'm going to get it throughout the build, and also get your wards, your harvester key, and anything else that is absolutely essential for your hero or for your class. For a lot of casters, mana is a very big issue. Getting some kind of mana here in the early game is actually very, very important. So here I knew that they were coming for me, and I knew I had enough CC to get out of that. Mana is very important for casters, so getting that is essential in the early game. So you're getting your damage, your mana, anything that's essential to your class, and then getting your key, your harvester keys if you are a jungler, your upgraded version of the harvester key, the upgraded version of your wards. Those are essential in the early game. Next is in the mid-game. That is generally where you then go on to getting the key components of your build. If you are doing a very tanky build, that is where you really focus on the tanky part of the build. You're getting the tanky cards and the tanky upgrades. If you're going for a high cooldown reduction build like I am, you may have noticed that I just finished my Pendulum of Lords, and now I'm going to go back and be upgrading my Lord's Ward with Chrono to get that cooldown reduction. Mid-game is where you definitely start seeing builds really going hard down a particular path. Then in the late game, once people are really doing their role, their function really quite well, damage is flying across the map immensely, people are finishing off their builds, so you need to somehow create a barrier against that by actually doing exactly that. Getting health, getting sustain, so that you can simply stay alive and stay relevant at the end game. Again, this is my opinion here. This is my recommendation for what you do during the match. So, early game, your wards, your key stats for your character. If you're building damage, do that in the early game. If you need that mana, do that in the early game. And simply do the essential bits there. Then in the mid game, get your essential stats for the build that you were going for. In the late game, I suggest sustain, health, and tankiness. The last, and you know what, to me, probably the most important, even though this comes last, is a positive attitude. As a military member myself, I understand what morale does, the effects of morale, how important morale really, really is. Having a positive attitude absolutely leads to results in the game. Apologizing for your mistakes equalizes yourself amongst your team. It brings you up to their level if you feel like you are, if you did wrong. And simply applauding great play by your allies empowers them. Remember, optimism and pessimism they are a positive feedback loop, meaning that they grow and they multiply on themselves. You put in 1 part enthusiasm, you get 2 parts back. Keeping a positive attitude, having a educational approach to everything that you do. Next time I'll learn, I will do better, is absolutely incredible. Do not underestimate the power of positive attitude. So there you guys have it. Those are my 5 tips. Hopefully they were clear for you. We'll go through them very quickly once again. Number 1 is map awareness. Remember, no matter your build, no matter how skilled and what hero you have, if you aren't in the right place at the right time, it doesn't matter. You weren't paying attention to the mini-map and saw that there was no enemies on the map, and you are way overextended into their base, and they gank you, that is map awareness fail. So keep your eyes on the mini-map. Notice when lanes are getting pushed into your towers, defend them. Notice when lanes are pushed into the enemy's towers, attack them, get that tower pick. Keep aware of the map, keep aware of the battlefield so that you can place yourself in exactly where you're needed. Number 2, wards are highly underrated and highly underutilized. Vision is basically free health, free damage, free advantage, free control. It takes a moment of your time to put them down, and the payback can be immense. Not dying to an enemy gank in the early game not only saves you from death, it saves you from your death timer. It makes you able to keep getting card power. It disables the enemy team from getting card power. It wastes their time that they could also be getting card power. It multiplies on itself. Wards, wards, wards in the early game. Number 3 is your role. How do you understand your role? What exactly is your role? Do you actually understand what it is? Number 2, what do you do to actually do that role? What do you actually have to do to fulfill that role? And then number 3, how do you fulfill that role? By the cards, by your strategy, by your gameplay? What is it exactly that you do to fulfill the role that you are? Number 4 is stat importance throughout the game. Remember, there's key stats have a different relative effect on the match at the current time throughout the match. In the early game, damage is very actually quite impactful. Same with mana for casters, same with a little bit of health. Actually, in the early game goes a really long way. You noticed on the Fae I picked 1 lesser health upgrade to go with that Veteran of the Amulet. I was actually a pretty big tank there in a lot of those early game engagements. So know the stat importance throughout the game. In the mid game, get your essential stats. If you're getting a high cooldown, that's when you get it. Along with, also you can certainly, of course, get it elsewhere. And in the late game, I suggest sustain and health and tankiness, as well as finishing off anything else left in your build. And number 5, I mean, if number 5 and 1 could be connected somehow, I would. If 5 could be an asterisk that's actually more important than 1, I would do that. But number 5 is a positive attitude. Remember, pessimism and optimism are a positive feedback loop. They multiply on themselves. You put in a little bit of positive attitude and it pays off double. Whether that means that everybody's pessimistic and you insert some optimism, at least you might not return everybody to being optimistic, but at least you might negate a little bit of negativity. That is really important. There are my 5 tips, ladies and gentlemen. Hope that this helped you. Hopefully this gameplay provided a little bit of some examples for you. I really hope that this helped you. Please leave a comment down in the section if it did. Please like the video if you liked it, dislike if you disliked. Leave a comment down in the section below if you found this helpful, and if you know, those tips were what you would recommend as well. Please share the video with the community, and of course subscribe if you found this video helpful, and if you just simply enjoyed it, subscribe so I can do it for you later. Social media, next page, please follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, like always, take care.